What is going on? This is Outrunner, and today I actually wanted to go through and share with you some of the programming that I've done in the radio for the Boomin Flerken. So, as you can see, after that crash, I was able to get it back together.
27 dB.
And yes, I do actually have a battery in it. It's on and working right now, and I have some things. I have glued it, like I said, back together. There's some major damage here. Nose is crushed. All of this. I'm actually planning on doing some additional paint to this guy to make it look like actual war damage, battle damage. And so we're going to do some additional gluing. I have some pieces that still need some reinforcement and whatnot. And I'm planning on trying to take it back out and flying it again. Up until now, I've had a couple of people actually talk about the pulsating in the motors and how they think, well, maybe there's a wiring issue, which is absolutely not the issue. And also, some other things that may be causing it. And I still have not yet determined what causes that pulsating in the motors. I'm still doing some research for myself. So if you know, make sure you drop that down in the comments. I do appreciate the thoughts and some of the comments and whatnot being made. Outside of that, I'm most likely going to adjust the throttle trim or adjust the throttle travel so that we don't get that pulsation, right up to that pulsation. That way I can max my throttle out when I'm flying and I don't have to worry about not going full speed, because I'm pretty sure this guy will do more than 60 miles an hour. I was backed off the throttle just to keep the props from pulsating. I do have some additional props, and I do have another fuselage already here ready to be built. So when I destroy this one, I can take the electronics out and build another one. I may even consider going with a 40 amp ESC instead of a 30 amp, and I want to check the programming for the ESC to see if there's something with that may be causing the pulsating. But it happens with both motors, so it's not an issue with a single motor. It is something that's happening, and I'm still not sure what it is. So with that, let's get into just a quick overview. If you have specific questions about how I programmed it and that kind of thing, I'll try to give you a little bit. This is going to be a somewhat long video, but I'll try to give you a little bit. And it logged a flight. And I will be actually sharing screenshots. So this is the way I'm doing this, is I'm going to tell you or show you briefly what switches I have working where, and then I'll give you screenshots of what the programming is in the radio in order to accomplish that. So first of all, as you can tell, I do, and I'm not sure why.
Minus 20 dB. Throttle active 15.6 volts.
So first of all, what we have is, you notice that the radio is announcing certain things. One is announcing the overall voltage. Right now, this battery is not fully charged. It's right now at 3.9 volts, which is 15.6 volts total, 3.9 volts per cell. And it's giving me one of the cell voltages. And right now, my minimum voltage is 3.8. 8 is the minimum voltage. So we have that. Of course, I'm sitting right next to it, so it's giving me my telemetry.
Minus 13 dB.
And it's announcing it. I've got that set up to announce it. And I have the ability to turn on and off my differential thrust from a switch. And if I turn off the arm on the motors, it also turns off differential thrust, so I don't have to worry about if I'm using my rudder left or right. You see, it's not doing anything. But if I activate the throttle, and of course my props are off, the motors do spin up. They spin up perfectly. And differential thrust is working. I actually have on the SA switch.
Differential off.
You hear that?
Differential on. Differential off.
You can barely hear it I wasn't able to record it louder than that, but I actually went in and created a differential on and off sound to play when the SA switch is turned on and off. I'm saving my SE switch for anything with flaps, so I'm trying to, with every plane, set it up so that each one of my switches will function the same for any aircraft that I program into it. That way I get used to the programming, what's necessary to program each one of the switches for each model, and I don't accidentally do something in the field because I hit a different switch. So, like I said, we have the throttle active right now, which means differential thrust is working. But if I turn the differential off, now, even with the throttle active, the differential is not working. But both props will work with the throttle adjustment. So I did that specifically because I wasn't sure as I get ready to take off and fly, maybe the differential would cause some issues or not. So I wanted to have it on a switch so I could turn it on and off. And I also wanted some type of announcement. I originally started with beeps. Since it's only on and off that third position for that 3-position switch, just beeps.
Differential off.
I go back to the middle, it is differential off.
Differential on.
Go back to the away position, differential on. So my default position for this aircraft is differential on. So if I turn my radio on and I turn on the aircraft, my default position for my throttle lock, throttle arm switch is away, which is off. All of my switches when I turn on my radio are set to default at away, which means that I have everything set the way I want it to be, unless I want to make an adjustment. So the other one is I have my SG switch currently set so that it gives me
Medium rate.
my rates. So my rates for all of my surfaces are
Low
adjusted.
rate.
So
Medium rate. High rate. Medium rate. Low rate.
and even
Medium rate. High rate. Medium rate.
the only
low
thing
rate.
that I did not put rates on is my elevator. My elevator stays the same no matter what rate it's in because I have it basically on full rate. And the good thing about this aircraft is that they give you a gauge to put on your surfaces to make sure you have the right amount of travel in your surfaces to get the best flight performance. If you put too much travel in your control surfaces, your aircraft is going to be twitchy. It's going to be almost non-controllable unless you put a ton of expo in your control switches. I mean, into your into your control sticks. So if you don't want to have to do that, even though I put expo in there because that expo helps me not to be jerky with my movement with the aircraft, and it helps me to make more smoother movements and corrections with the aircraft. That's what I do. One thing also you'll notice is this aircraft was flying rather low, and the reason why it was flying low, I believe, is because I need to do some up trim to my elevator, which I'm going to do. I just haven't done it yet, and I think that's going to help it keep the nose up a little bit more, because if I came off the elevator, especially if I was slowing the plane down, she would drop. Into turns, she drops a lot. And so I want to keep that elevator pulled back into a, normally you would do that, a little bit of elevator into your turns, because when you're turning, you're losing lift, therefore the aircraft drops a little bit. I want to add a little bit of elevator automatically, or what you can do is, and people do this, mix in a little bit of elevator along with your rudders, with your ailerons, so that when you're making a turn, it also adds just a tad bit of elevator to keep the nose up in the turn. That's something you can do, or learn how to make sure that you do that yourself. I may consider doing that with this particular aircraft because it's pretty fast. And then the second one you can also do is add a little bit of rudder, which I did not do with this. Mix in a little bit of rudder with your ailerons so that when you make a turn, it will add a little bit of differential in the turn to help you in the turn. So you can actually add an elevator and a little bit of differential into your turns to give you a little bit sharper turn, as well as keep your nose up so that you keep that elevation. So I don't have anything else programmed into this guy. My 2 position over here, or my this switch, I have other purposes for usually. I may use it. I'm trying to determine, because that is usually my flip for FPV flying. If my drone lands upside down, I use this for the flip, and then switch on the throttle, and have it flip back over. It's a little trick that I learned from Captain Drone a while back, and that's what I usually use that switch for, because it's a momentary. And then I have my arm switch is always here, and I'm always going to put my rates on my SG switch, and then SD currently does not have anything programmed into it for this particular aircraft, but that one I am using it as a mode switch for my gyro. I don't have a gyro in this plane, so that's going to be the gyro mode switch for every aircraft, and that's basically how I'm setting it up. So if we go into the screen, so what you see on the screen, of course, is I actually created my own image. I believe I've shared that in a video before on how to change that image out, as well as I've got my first screen set up so that I can see the voltage. I can see my voltage on the radio. I can see the voltage on the battery in the aircraft itself, and I can see my telemetry across the top. Quite a few things going on there, and my actual flight time. That flight time is actually set up so that when I activate my throttle, and while it's actually based on the throttle itself. And then I actually have another timer that's set up. And let's see if I got it on the next page or not. On that last page, okay, it's registered a flight. My total flight timer, it currently is 1 minute and 6 seconds. So as soon as I activate my throttle, it gives me that timer. But it's also giving me the actual time in the air, and that's based on this, on my arm, my switch being armed. While my switch is armed, it's going to keep going up, and it's going to tell me what that is. And the only time that I'm getting a reading from the battery is while the aircraft is actually in the air. So now I'm getting my voltage reading because I have the arm switch on, which is something I set up in my special functions as well. So there's a lot of tweaking and whatnot that I've done here. Again, if you have questions about any of those specifically, make sure you ask them in the comment section. And it's been crazy busy for me lately. I'm doing a lot here, including I'm working on a speed run challenge on my other channel. It has taken a lot of time and work. So as I have the opportunity to do that, I will create some additional videos sharing how it is that I actually set up or program the radio to get the functions that I want to out of the aircraft, or out of the radio, announcing the information that I want, as well as displaying the information that I want displayed. It's been awesome figuring this out and going through it. I will tell you that there's 2 channels, or actually 3 channels. If you really want to know how to program the Radio Master Radio, there's 3 channels that I suggest that you go and check out. RC Video Reviews is one of them. And then Captain Drone has a ton of videos. They're primarily focused on flying FPV. However, he has a lot of information on programming the TX16S and like radios with Edge TX. Some have Express LRS, but Edge TX in them, because that's the operating system that's actually running this particular radio, as well as many other Radio Master radios. And much of that will work with any radio that's running Edge TX, which is kind of the reason why I'm when it comes to my aircraft, for the most part, I'm sticking with that. However, Radio Link has actually been partnering with me with a few other things, and so I'm looking forward to actually sharing some information on the Radio Link radios as well. But for most of these, Radio Master is what I'm using. And I do have another Radio Master radio that I think is really great for beginners that I'll be talking about very, very soon. I actually have a Radio Link radio as well as a Radio Master radio that I think both of them are good beginner radios to start off with. One's a little bit, I think, maybe a little bit easier to use than the other, but they're both great radios. So we'll be talking about those very soon as well. So again, if you have questions, and as I'm talking here, I'm just kind of showing you what some of the screens look like. But as you're viewing those screens, make a note and ask, what information do you want to know? So that I can do more in-depth information on those particular settings within EdgeTX, so that you can know how I actually set each one of these things up. And I may even consider doing one where I actually make the sounds that I want to use, that I put into the radio, and then use them. There's some updates for the Radio Master Radio also that I have not done yet for EdgeTX. There's an update for EdgeTX that I haven't put in yet, because currently, let's see if I can see which version. Currently, I'm still running EdgeTX 2.9.4. There are a few updates, and I can't remember what we're at yet. Want to say we're at 2.10 already, but I'm not sure. But I do plan on updating this radio, as well as, like I said, I've got another Radio Master Radio I'll be talking about soon, so I'll try to do the update to that one. And we're actually going to really take a look and try to give you some information and stuff that you need. If you're interested in the Flerken, I'm going to tell you it's a handful to fly, but you can do it. Will I ever put a gyro in this plane? I don't know yet. I may consider doing that, and to see if it actually helps me to be able to handle this plane better. We'll see. But at any rate, I did want to share that with you. And again, this is super brief, because even with me just giving you a brief overview of how I got this guy set up, this is a relatively long video, so I appreciate you. I think I need to break down each one of the individual pieces of the setup and try to create videos for each one. But it's going to start with the questions that you have. So if you're still here, you have questions, make sure you ask those questions so that we can get those individual pieces done. Before we go, last thing I want to say is, like I said, I got this guy glued back together. I had it mounted on the wall. It keeps falling off the wall, so I end up with additional damage. So I've got some additional things that I need to go in and do some reinforcement and all of that too. And like I said, I'm going to hit it with some paint in some spots like this to make it look like battle damage. And then we're going to take this guy back out again and try to fly him again and see if we can get a good flight in, or a couple of flights. And then after that, the other thing we're going to do is, if for some reason we totally destroy this particular Flerken, we do have another one from flight test. We're going to put that one together. I'm possibly going to go with a very similar paint scheme. If I can't figure out what's going on with the electronics, I may decide to go with a different motor and ESC combination. Or I may do something where I add a different motor and ESC that will possibly add a little bit more power to the aircraft. And we'll see how that works out. So, with all of that being said, thank you so much for hanging out and watching all of this very long video. But again, if you have specific information you want to know, ask it down in the comments. I'll do my best to get to it. We're getting close to the end of this season and into a build season. Perfect opportunity, because the time that I'll have to get out and fly is probably going to be even that much less. So I'll be in the studio workshop building stuff out and working on things, and even some of the other projects that I hadn't gotten a chance to get back to, I'll be working on those as well. So thank you so much for coming by, hanging out with me again. I really appreciate it. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you again in a future video.